gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. Build a masterpiece, the colors so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Align your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet. Then you gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. Vision masterpiece, the colors so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Design your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet.
Peace, peace, peace. What's happening? What's good? This is Obed Bay, Obed Coach Bay. We are here, Design Your Life, the podcast, and I am so excited about this episode. I'm excited about all the episodes, but I'm really excited about this episode today. I've got a brother that I haven't spoken to in many, many years, sharper than the laser, and good brother that I have not spoken to in so long. So I'm really excited about this conversation, but it's important for you to know what this show, this podcast is all about. Design Your Life is about encouraging you, inspiring you to design your life around the things that you enjoy and you love, the things that you're passionate about, the things that give you energy. And one of the things that I feel is more important than anything is that you are exposed to people that are actually doing it. Nobody wants to just sit here and listen to Coach Bay, talk about designing their lives. So it's important that we bring people to you that are actually doing what it is that I hope that you embark on, which is designing your life around the things you love, enjoy, and are passionate about. So I am so excited about this brother here. And he's done a lot, so hopefully I can do him a little bit of justice when I bring him in. This young man is a father, he's a husband, activist, innovator, educator, social entrepreneur, and agent of empowerment, founder and managing partner at Ember Charter School of Mindful Education, Innovation, and Transformation, graduate of NYU School of Law, a poet, winner of the 2000 Voices for Black Justice Fund Award, the phenomenal, the incredible, my brother, Rafiq Kalam Id-Din, SY. What's
Peace and
happening, brother?
blessings. Love, peace, and power, brother. Listen,
Yes.
you honor me so much for that introduction. I was like, who are you talking about? Like, who's he talking about? But it's a real blessing and an honor to be here. It's been many
Yeah.
years since we had a chance to talk and build. But, you know, the example that you're set, the work that you're doing, what this podcast represents, and I hope everybody who hears it, sees it, that they allow it to get into their heart and into their spirit, because what you are offering people is, I think, exactly the medicine that they need to really be able to catalyze their own life. So thank you, brother. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you giving me your time. That time currency is so important. So I really appreciate it. And like I said, we haven't spoken in many years, but where I do want to start, I want to start at the beginning. All right. I want you to take me back to childhood. Talk to
Hmm.
us a little bit about your childhood, where you're from, what your household looked like, what it looked like, what it smelled like, what it felt like when you were growing up.
So, it's interesting, Obed. I don't know, when we were in high school together, and don't mean to out us because that's how long we go back. We go back to high school.
All good.
Um, we went to high school in North Philly. I grew up in Germantown.
Hmm.
And I was, you know, over the years, I've had a lot of chance to think about how I characterized my childhood. We were economically extremely poor, struggling. I was in a household with 10 kids. We had mental illness. We had drug addiction, we had suicide, there was violence. And even in the midst of all of that, while economically those conditions were poor and challenging, I felt culturally wealthy. I was
Mm,
raised in the original Nation of Islam, right? So that community and that culture, which kind of nurtured me as a young man, poured into me so much about who I was and what was possible that defied the external circumstances of my childhood, right?
yeah.
So there were roaches, and then the roaches left because we had no food, right? So there's nothing for them to eat. So, what I'm saying? There was no heat. no hot waters or the mice left. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it was one of
Yeah.
those situations where the poverty was pretty extreme, but on a day-to-day basis, I was empowered and told that the way out of that was to feed my mind. And so
Mm,
that's what me and my siblings, that's what we did. And so
yeah.
it's interesting to reflect back on that time because I, I wanted more than nothing else than to leave and to get out of that, right?
Mm,
You know, I would see the brothers and sisters we were in high school with, and people had the fly gear and they had all of those things, and I had none of it.
yeah.
And I just, and it wasn't in my control. Like, I mean, it's not like I didn't choose to say, well, give me the parents who were going to be activists and challenged in this way, and then not have any money and then face this trauma and to be set
Right.
back on their heels. I didn't
Mm,
choose that. And so I felt like my lot in my childhood was, I felt really like it was unfair. Like, damn,
yeah.
why can't I have the Stan Smiths? Why can't I
Yeah.
have, like, you know what I'm saying, the bomber jack, like the starter jack? Why
Right.
couldn't I have those things?
Right.
Um, and so that was my childhood. My childhood, in that sense, there was a lot of things I just didn't have, and so that meant I moved with a lot of shame. And again, I mean, you knew me in high school as an activist, as a person, as a leader, and all these other things. And so people probably didn't. I don't know if people really saw that because it was me trying to compensate for that to say, well, I have something to offer. That was
Yeah.
this. That was my mind.
Yeah.
And so even at that young of an age, and that was because of the community that I was raised in that told me that, like, your mind is your weapon. Your mind is all
Mhm.
the things that you really need. And every day it was hard to stay in that place.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had 3 jobs throughout, like, adolescence. I would leave school, go work down in Center City, and then I would then go clean toilets up in Mount Airy, sweep floors, and then
Mhm.
go home and do my homework. When electricity was
Yeah.
off, I'd be on the windowsill trying to use the street light to kind of study and do my. It was before computers, right? So before
Right.
anyone had a
Right.
laptop and
Right.
all that stuff. And
For sure.
so that's what my childhood was like. That's what my adolescence was like. I
Yeah.
was committed to trying to get out of that, trying to do
Yeah.
what I could. I couldn't shoot the ball, couldn't run, I couldn't do those things,
Right.
but I knew that if I sharpened my mind, that there was a pathway forward. And I was blessed to have people to tap me on the shoulder and say, stay focused on that North Star. And
Yeah.
so I did. So I did.
Yeah. So along those lines of childhood, what did you dream about? What did you love doing
Yeah.
during those younger years?
Yeah. I mean, we played, even with all the challenging things that I described, I look back on
Hmm.
my childhood as full of joy. I played sports a lot, even though I was born with a really serious birth defect that, I had something called Blount's disease, which basically meant that before I got to high school, by the time I got to high school, I had like a couple of surgeries and mostly addressed the way I looked physically. But for most of
Mm,
my childhood, I was a deformed child, right? I
mm,
would walk around and people would see one of those kids they would put on the commercials. That's how I looked. And
yeah,
so even with that, I played basketball, I played football. I wanted to see to move beyond what my physical body said I could do. And then I
yeah.
would read a lot, right? I would read a ton. And so I started to dream about, first I dreamed about playing in the NFL. And then very quickly, I went to go try out for the Bantams up in Mount Airy. And coach
Okay.
was like, he said, you look at you. He literally said, look at you. Now I know, back then people
Oh,
weren't really
damn.
politic, right? But
Right, right.
he was like, you can't, we can't let you play. Like,
Yeah.
you gonna get hurt, and then we gonna get sued. And I'm sitting here like, no, I got heart, right? I kept saying, I got
Right,
heart,
right,
and that's
right,
all you need. It was like, no, that's not all you need, little brother.
right.
No. So then I couldn't be an NFL player. So then I was like, well, maybe I started dreaming about. I read a lot of science fiction, so I was like, maybe I'll be an astronaut. And that's
Mm,
actually the thing that, like, propelled me to go to Carver Engineering and Science, where we went to high school. It's
yeah.
the thing that attracted me to the school because I thought that was the way that I was going to get to the Air Force Academy to become a pilot. But then I
Mm,
was told then because of my deformity, because of my condition, they were
Yeah.
like, "You'll never be a pilot." So then I
Right.
was like, "All right, well then I'll become an engineer. I'll build the ship. So now you got to send me up, right?"
Right.
And so
Right.
that was that. Even though ultimately that's not what I do, that's not my career.
Yeah.
That was the North Star that I followed to get me out of those circumstances, out of like I really out of like the neighborhoods in Philly, and got me down to UVA, got me down to Virginia, where I eventually would go to college. And so
Okay.
that's that's what I aspired to. So I followed, I dreamed a lot about
Yeah.
being more than what I appeared to be, more than what you would look at the surface, you know.
Yeah.
I was a chubby, deformed kid, and I was like, I'm more than that. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm great, you know.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, I was great then, right? I
Yeah.
was always great, right? I
hundred
didn't know
percent.
it,
A
right?
hundred
I didn't know
percent.
it, but I wanted
And
to see
sometimes you
beyond
just
myself,
don't.
and I was enough.
Sometimes we don't see that within ourselves, especially when you're living it, you're young. But the Rafiq I know and I remember was extremely strong, extremely sharp. And so it's so interesting the narratives that we place on ourselves,
Hmm.
So one thing I want to know is, what did your parents do?
So neither my parents were both got high school educations. My father, they were both teen parents to start with.
Okay.
My mother had my oldest brother when she was just about 16, and my father had my oldest half brother when he was 16, 17. Um, my parents, born in the 40s in Philly, during there was still real segregation, segregated schools, segregated everything. My father spent a life, his youth involved in gangs because that's all there
Mhm.
was. You do that for
Yeah.
protection, you do that to kind of
Yeah.
make your way. Um, and then just by happenstance, my mother's a teenage mom, right? Teenage,
Yeah.
parent. And so, but both of them constantly wanted to do better.
Mm.
They were always curious. And so even though the terminal degree they might have received was a high school diploma, their curiosity, their desire to do more for themselves and their family led them both separately to the nation, to the original Nation of Islam. And
Mm.
so they joined that community as activists, as young people who were activists, and helped build that community in Philadelphia. That was their work, principally. That was their work, which was
Word.
about nation building, right? Building families, building communities, building a school, which again, that's eventually what that's my work now. I did not set off though to do and continue my parents' work, but it was
Yeah.
important from like in my mind when I think about it as activists, they were trying to answer the question, how do we transform things for our people? And the
Yeah.
school was one of the major things that they could do as a community. And that's kind of where they leaned in. So my mother would eventually, she would participate in the MGT, and that's the Muslim Girls Training, and she would participate in supporting the community in that particular way. But for my dad became one of the operational leaders of the school in the masjid. He did the bookkeeping, he did organize the operations. And so I went to the elementary school that was the Sister Claire Muhammad School in West Philly.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's where I got my root. And so that's what they technically did. And that's
Okay.
until the things that would derail them, right? The trauma and the experiences that would happen that would then derail them later on in life. But that's what my parents did. They were activists.
Okay. So let me fast forward real quick. You mentioned UVA, and but what I want to know is a little bit about NYU.
Hmm.
And what was that experience? Because a lot of, that experience is not the typical experience of many people that
Yeah.
may watch this. And, so I'm just curious, especially at that point. I forget what year it was. I want to say around 2000. But what was
So
that experience? What was that experience like in the
yeah,
classrooms? In the not, but the experience, but in the classrooms, were there familiar faces? Did you feel welcome? Like, what was that like?
it's interesting. Like, I credit my time at NYU Law as the defining time for me as a catalyst and an agent of change. It's where I really grew up into take on and knew very clearly what I was going to do, but more so how I was going to do it. When I went to
Okay.
law school, I got there in '97. So I had finished up my undergrad and graduate degree, and I got my master's degree in teaching. I was teaching down in Virginia. And I was going to law school so I could figure out how to start my own free private school. That was my goal. And so I went to law school really to figure that out. When I got there, I was one of only, I want to say there were 7 Black men in my class of about a little over 400. So
Mm,
you just to give you the
yeah,
numbers, and
yeah,
then there
yeah.
were maybe another 10 Black women. So only about 17 of us out
Wow.
of that whole class. And so I remember that year at University of California, Berkeley, at their law school, they had one Black person, and that Black person did not finish there that year because they
Yeah.
were like, no, this is just too hostile. So when I got to NYU to the
Mm,
law school, it felt at first like a very hostile environment because it was
mm,
my people just were not there.
yeah.
And in the first few classes that I took, there was an attempt to dissect and divorce race from the law, which in America to me should be impossible. And I've learned it is impossible, right? You can
Hmm.
create a fiction where that's not true. But I
Yeah.
had professors who were trying to convince me that the law that cannot be used to create racism, which is completely not true. And so that was
Yeah.
my first set of experiences. But now, while I had those experiences, I was also blessed to get great professors and mentors who didn't see it that way and really started to empower me with a lot of guidance about how to navigate that opportunity. And the
Mm,
best advice that I got was to learn to do and master the things that I didn't know how to do, that I was less
okay.
familiar with. So instead of focusing on the areas of law that had to do with nonprofit organizations or education, I was encouraged to learn tax, to learn securities, to learn
Mm,
finance, to learn about all of the economic things that would make a school like the one I wanted to create possible. That's
hmm.
the best education that I got. So that's what I did. I started
Right.
taking income tax. I started taking mergers and acquisitions. I took securities and finance. I started taking all of these classes. Now, I also took classes that would continue to feed my activism. I studied under the great late Derek Bell. He was a mentor of mine. And
Mm,
I only got that opportunity because I was at NYU Law. I studied with Brian Stevenson, who continues to be a mentor. So I got a chance to learn from these giants in
mm,
civil rights, these giants in like what I call Black thought. And
mm.
then I also got an opportunity to learn from people I might not have chosen. At the time, the dean of the law school, John Sexton, let me tell you, we actually had, as young as people, so much more in common than many of the Black people that I encountered in law school because they came from wealth. And I didn't
Wow,
come
okay.
from wealth.
Yeah.
Neither did John Sexton, right? And
Right.
so he is this white guy from Brooklyn. And I got a chance to see those intersections, those
Hmm.
connections. And so
Hmm.
this person who saw the world very similar to the way that I did, how do I change the world by focusing on the development of the next generation to the next generation? And so he became this amazing mentor of mine that I got because of another mentor who's a brother who also grew up in Bed-Stuy, Harlem, poor like I
Hmm.
was,
Hmm.
and became one of the wealthiest, most successful entrepreneurs that you probably never heard of. You probably never
Wow.
heard of Anthony Welters. You probably never heard of this man before. But
No.
I'm telling your listeners, to the extent you can find information about this, is one of the most, him and his wife Beatrice are two of the most amazing, powerful leaders and people in our world. They grew up like we did. They are like
Mm,
us. And what they did was they tried. So I was blessed to encounter these people who saw me for who I was and resonated for the way in which I aspired to change the world. And they said, okay, if you're open to it, we're going to give you some guidance if you're ready to receive it. And I was hungry for it. And so I took it. So that
Yeah.
experience at NYU, you're right, Obed. Like that experience changed the game for me completely. And
Yeah.
becoming a lawyer, that thinking skill set, listen, you don't got to go to law school to learn about the law,
Yeah.
but it's worth learning. It is worth
Mm,
learning because it structures the entire way in which our country works, therefore the way the world works.
yeah. Word, man. That's powerful. It's I'm gonna have to definitely look into them because like you said, there's so many heroes out here that we just don't know about.
Hmm.
And again, this is one of the things and one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this because it's important for not only people that look like us and come from where we come from, but people that may not necessarily look like us, but come from where we come from
Exactly.
to
That's right.
to experience it and see it and know that it's possible to do what you want to do and that you're not this unicorn or that you're not what your environment tells you you should be.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I go back to greatness, like you said. I was great. I didn't realize it, but I was great. So man, that's powerful.
Obed, there's this. So the mentors, Anthony and Beatrice Welchers, who I was talking about, they created their family foundation. It's called the Ann Bryce Foundation. Again,
Hmm.
your listeners have probably never ever heard of it because they're not their philanthropy, their work is not for publication. They're
Yeah.
doing it because they believe in it, right? So they
Hmm.
created this scholarship program in their foundation focused on first generation people, people who are first generation to go to college, to go to law school, to go to grad school. And this scholarship program that I was blessed to help them stand up and build the mechanisms of it, it focuses on all people where this is their first. So this
Hmm.
scholarship, we got white people from Kentucky and
Hmm.
black people from Kentucky who were so much more similar, right?
Hmm.
Than the people who are, in no shade to our black people who are fourth
Yeah.
generation doctors and lawyers, because that's a beautiful thing to be
Yeah.
black and to be able to do that. But their experience with the world is very different than the
Yeah.
experience that I had, right?
Yeah.
And so they have now built this cadre now of hundreds of these law school graduates now who are connected through this shared experience of being first generation. And you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about people who were born and raised in Chinatowns, right? Connecting with
Mm-hmm.
people who were born and raised in North Philly, connecting with people who were born and raised in Idaho. Now
That's awesome.
that's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking
Yeah.
about those people who fought their way through all of the challenges that comes with being first generation to design their own lives. And
Yeah.
so what they talk about and what we talk about when we get together is about how do we proselytize and share more of this with the people who are also first generation, people who are coming from where we came from. And so that
Yeah.
everyone can get and receive this message, which is why, again, I was so hyped and honored to come on the podcast because there are not a lot of places like this to have these conversations.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. It's so much. There's so much to dive into in that space. But I'm gonna keep it moving. I'm gonna keep it moving.
All right, let's do it.
So let me ask you this: what was your first move out of NYU? First thing you did?
So my first move actually started while I was still in law school. So
Okay.
this is what you learn, right? I mean, I never aspired to go to law school, so I didn't know anything about it. And
Right.
so this is where asking questions about, well, what do, and listening to what your peers are doing, right? What they're thinking about
Mm-hmm.
doing. So the first thing I did, once I got the advice to focus on the things I didn't know, there are lots of areas of law I didn't understand. I didn't know anything about, first of all, intellectual property, as an example, because that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the first things that I started to pursue. I didn't know anything about labor law. So the first internship I got was at the National Hockey League. And
Okay.
I started that internship at the end of my first semester, my first year, my 1L year. Then the next summer, I worked there through the National Hockey League through the next summer. And then that fall, I worked for the NFL and their management council, learned about labor law, right? Tons of brothers in the NFL, just really
Mm-hmm.
curious. Again, I didn't have any interest necessarily to going into sports, but I wanted to understand what I didn't know. And
Yeah.
so then I used that to then springboard to go work for a large law firm. And I wanted to work for a large law firm because it was going to give me the opportunity to learn the most about finance. And that's the area that I knew the least about, but I knew was
Mm,
going to be the most critical. So then I
okay.
spent my second summer splitting my time between the New York office and the London office of a law firm called Debevoise and Plimpton, one of the large law firms. And then when I came back, and I had a pretty good experience there, but I learned
Hmm.
my first lesson. When I came back from London, I was supposed to. I have this one woman partner who was she was dynamic. She was amazing, and she was like, "I'm going to teach you what you need to know." But she went
Hmm.
on vacation, and I had to work with one of her other partners, and it
Mm,
was this white man, and instantly I can tell that he didn't want to hear what I had to say. I wanted to ask questions. He didn't want to answer my questions. And
yeah.
what I realized, I wound up kind of not having anything to do. And I
Mm,
learned that's the death knell. Because
mm,
if you're not doing, you're not learning. You're not
okay.
learning. And if I'm not
Yeah.
learning, why am I here?
Why am I
And
here? Yeah.
so I was concerned that maybe I'm going to get put out of, I'm going to get marginalized. I'm not going to get an opportunity to really learn as intensely as I want. So I was at a dinner. I was at an NYU Law alumni dinner. I was at the time I was president of the law school's student bar association, and I gave a speech, and I'm sitting at the dinner, and I'm sitting next to this guy who I'd seen at a few of these events. This guy named Tom Brome, who's passed on now, and he was at a
Mm,
rival law firm. This law firm called Cravath, Swaine and Moore, which is probably one of the most prestigious law firms in the world. It goes all the way back to like Thomas Jefferson's time. That's actually when it started. So it's been around a long time.
okay.
And I didn't even look at this law firm because I was like, there's no way they're going to take a brother like me. So there's just no way. And I
Yeah.
was like, it's just, they didn't really have a reputation for because thinking about diversity.
Right.
And he asked me if I considered that I applied to them. And I said I hadn't. I told him why. And I told him about my experience. And he said, listen, I want you to come talk with some of my partners. Just come visit with us. There's
Hmm.
no, then send my resume. We're sitting at a dinner. We're sitting at this
Yeah.
dinner. So I go and I meet with about 5 different partners and a couple of associates. One of the partners I met with, his father was a plumber, and he talked about how he was first generation. Now, this guy, his name is Rob Kindler, and people can Google who this guy is. Rob Kindler,
Right.
who's now giant in finance and investment banking, and he was one of the top M&A lawyers even then. And just
Hmm.
talk, he was a regular. He was regular.
He's
He
a
was just a
regular dude.
regular dude. He was like,
Yeah.
listen, like you belong here. This is the kind of place where
Yeah.
you should be. And he had me go talk to this other associate, the sister, this woman named Tina Perry. And this is the first time I met Tina, and I was like, all right, Tina, you got to tell me, like, what's up? Like, what's really going on?
Yeah.
And she gave me the scoop. She said, listen, this place is the best place because you're going to learn intensely. She said, whether you aspire to be a partner or not, is the best place that you can learn. And also, there are people who don't think that you should be here because you're black.
Hmm.
And she said, can't be focused on that narrative. Some of the
Yeah.
best advice I ever got. Right?
Yeah.
This is one of my closest friends to this day. And so I took the offer. They made me an offer before I left the building, bro. Before I left the
Yeah.
building, they were like, "Come talk to us."
I gotta make sure that we don't lose that piece right there. So this was your goal was to learn as much as you possibly could,
That
right?
was my goal.
And within learning as much as you possibly could, you were potentially going to be in an environment, right, that in some shape, in some ways, didn't want you there.
That's
But
correct.
your mentor, your associate, whoever that was, this is the place where you need to be. And a lot of times, man, we are deterred by the things, the naysayers. I call them the naysayers and the dream slayers.
Mm-hmm.
Naysayers and the dream slayers that say that you shouldn't be, that you don't belong, that you shouldn't have. We allow them to take us off of our square and being in the space that we need to be in, and then we
Absolutely.
end up drifting in a whole different direction outside of what our destiny may be. So I just don't want to lose that important piece right there.
Listen, you are completely correct. Let me, this may not be the popular thing to say now. I know people
Yeah,
are
say
really
it.
caught up on work-life balance. I get it. Like it's
Say
a
it.
thing that people talk about today, right? But the truth is, if you are more focused on your comfort than your mission, and I'm not saying like, look, we got to take care of our health, right?
Hmm.
We got to take care of ourselves and our loved ones. We need to have balance. Balance is important. But the truth is, if we lead with our comfort and only go to spaces where we're going to be valued on our terms from the outset, we lose an opportunity. And I was committed more to my mission than I was to my comfort. And that's one of
Mm,
the most important lessons that not just my mentors, but that my parents taught me, right?
yeah.
That my environment taught me. It was an uncomfortable environment, but it taught me to work hard. It taught me to be resilient. That when I lost and I had setbacks, to learn from them, to see failure as an asset. And all of those things came because I was willing to bear being uncomfortable. And it was
Yeah.
it continues to be the lesson that I learned. It continues to be the lesson
Yeah.
that drives my life. So you're absolutely right. That thread right there. So exiting law school, I went to go work for this firm. I went into the toughest, most difficult group that did mergers and acquisitions, and my life was intense from the start. I would work literally 100, 120-hour weeks. I would sleep at the
Mm,
office. I would do things 3, 4, and 5 times. I would make mistakes and I would fail fast. I would get cussed at, yelled at, and I would be like,
mm,
okay, let me listen for what I need to let me cipher through the noise. What do I
yeah.
need to learn here? I spent
Yeah.
time, I got asked to go to our Hong Kong office. I didn't speak Chinese, no, didn't speak Mandarin, Cantonese, Chinese, I didn't speak any of that. But they wanted
Hmm.
to see whether or not I was willing to do whatever I was asked to do,
Yeah.
which meant moving to the other part of the world and being of service to our clients. And so I said, when do
Yeah.
I leave?
What are you willing to
So
go
that's it.
through?
What are you willing to go through?
What are you willing to go through to become? Sometimes we are not willing to go through the failures, the embarrassments, and all those things. And a lot of it, and I don't want to drift too far off because, like I said, we can talk about some of this for hours and hours. As men,
Yeah.
we get trapped in what a gentleman called the man box. And the man
Mm-hmm.
box tells you what you should be as a man,
Mm-hmm.
from a societal standpoint. And we are unable to accept the feedback, the difficult times, the uncomfortable positions that is where the sweet fruit is. That's where the
Exactly.
sweet fruit is, in those uncomfortable spaces. And unfortunately, we look for the soft landing more than we look
Mm-hmm.
for, that difficult space to kind of move into. So, man,
You,
there's some
you know,
gems.
when we were talking before we got on air, you referenced the brothers from Earn Your Leisure, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
phrase is such a powerful phrase,
yeah.
right? Because it begins with the word earn.
Hmm.
And embedded in that is there's an effort that must be exhibited first. And again, listen, I, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. I'm not saying that people shouldn't try to pursue the lifestyle that they want,
Yeah,
but to try to move as if you're entitled to it without effort, without an investment of something, you just playing the lottery, right? You just want to
right.
gamble. And,
Yeah.
and and I'm not building my life. I'm not designing my right life around gambling. And
Yeah.
so it was important for me to, and not every decision I make leads to me winning in the way that I want to win, but I
Hmm.
always move forward. And so even
Hmm.
while I was doing all this, Obed, I was nurturing my goal to start a school. I never lost sight
Okay.
of that. I could like all of everything that I was learning, everything that I was doing. My dedication was how is this going to help me build and start the school that I wanted to start and that I wanted to build. And if I hadn't been in Hong Kong, I would not have been able to see the structure of a law firm the way that
Mm,
it really exists. Because here in New York, it can feel like a big corporation that you work for, when in truth, that's not what it is.
yeah.
And so those who see that get it and learn to play that game. And for me, it helped me understand organizational structure, at the root. And it's what led me to
Mm.
actually even have the core design for the school that I would go on to create and open, and that I continue to operate to this day.
We're gonna go there. But before we go there, talk to me about Echoing Green.
Yeah,
Talk to me about Echoing Green and what Echoing Green is and
yeah.
what you got out of that experience.
So Echoing Green is an organization that focuses on investing in visionaries and innovators. Specifically, they help create the field of social entrepreneurship. And what their core idea was that if we can identify young visionaries and leaders at the beginning and give them seed capital, we can help them amplify and bring these like world-changing ideas to the marketplace. And
Mm.
that's been Echoing Green's focus for over 3 decades. So some of the major NGO nonprofit organizations, so everything from Teach for America to Grammatine Bank, like these ideas of microfinance to how do we get young people at top universities interested in teaching, City Year, public, it's called Public Voices, Public Allies, I'm sorry, Public Allies, which is based in Chicago, which was founded by Michelle Obama, who was an
Mm.
Echoing Green Fellow. All
Mm.
of these people, what they did was see talent, visionaries, and innovators early on. So for
Okay.
me, I took my idea for my school design to them, and it was a test. Did they see it the way I saw it? Could they see what was possible about the innovation and schooling that I was trying to nurture and build and contribute? And I was blessed because they did. They
Mm.
saw it. And so getting that, and to this day, they are the major institutional, they were the first and really the only institutional funder of this dream that I was nurturing to start this particular school. And so, because they gave me the seed capital, and more than that, the credibility, because now they were like, oh, you're an Echoing Green fellow. Oh, that means you have
Yeah.
something to offer. Because when I came along in 2007, they had been around for decades. So their track
Mhm.
record was platinum. And
Yeah.
so, who they chose, they knew that these were going to be people who were going to change the world. And so, they have continued. I serve on the board now. That's how
Mhm.
committed they were committed to me, and that's how committed I am, and have been committed to choosing the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. So, Echoing Green is a powerful organization. And for anyone who's looking, and they continue to do that work, and the work is evolving even now to
Mhm.
focus not on people in the beginning stages, but supporting us all along the way as you continue to be an innovator, a disruptor, a social entrepreneur to try to solve some of our world's most challenging problems.
No, that's awesome. All right, now tell me about your baby. Tell me about tell me about your
So,
charter school.
it's interesting. Like the charter school mechanism is simply
Mhm.
the law that gives me the funding to do what I've designed to do. And I want to encourage people to really think about, people hear charter schools, they hear all kinds of things, they think all kinds of
Yeah.
notions about what it is. But really, what it is it is a legal mechanism to get public funding to run a public school that's going to be managed by a nonprofit. Now, this is how it is in most states. There are a few
Mhm.
places where those can be for profit, but those represent less than like 5% of all charter schools that exist and that are out there. And so I wanted to be able to design from the ground up a school that did at least two things. One, change the craft and the profession. I wanted it to be able to say, what would happen if we reimagined how schools are organized? Who makes the principal decisions for these things we call schools? And then, two, what if schools decided to pursue something very different than what they've been pursuing for the last 300 years? So, in the
Mhm.
first question, I took what I learned being at a law firm and I said, well, what would happen if we organize the structure and governance of schools the same way that law firms are structured and organized? And it's called this professional partnership model. And
Okay.
so I said, well, what if I built one called the teaching firm and ran a school that way? That was the design I took to Echoing Green. And
Mm.
the question was, well, why do it this way? And it's principally because I believe that those who were making decisions about what schools could do and should do were so separated from the principal client, the student, and their
Mhm.
families, and what it took to serve them, that I wanted to close that gap. In a law firm, lawyers serve their clients. No one gets in between that. That is the principal design. It's the same thing at similar things at medical practices, even investment banks. Investment
Mhm.
banks, these financial firms, it's them and their clients. And the people who do the work who serve the clients make the decisions for the organization. So that's how my teaching firm works. I'm a
Okay.
full-time teacher, and I'm one of the group of people who run the school. And so that's why I'm the managing partner. I have other partners who also help run the school. We make collective decisions very much in the way that law firms make their decisions. And what that is able to do is it then moved the compensation from being these people who are executives who aren't in the classroom, they are no longer the highest compensated individuals. It's the teachers and the teaching practitioners. And so that was the innovation that we then offered. Now, once we got the reins and we're the
Mm-hmm.
decision makers, now we can think, how do we best serve our clients? And what that led us to do was to ask the question, what should we pursue in this endeavor? Should we continue to pursue information acquisition? Like this test prep is all about, well, what information did you memorize? And then
Mm-hmm.
let me assess what information you memorize. But that's actually not, we have young people as they're developing into adults. The question we should ask is how do we best prepare you for adulthood? How do we best prepare you to go into the world to be prosperous, healthy, contributing people in our society? And that would lead us to do very different things and to court
Mm.
a very different set of skills than what schools currently court now. And so
Yeah.
for us, that then meant we had to build an entire new model. We had to build a model that's actually modeled a bit more on how universities and law schools function.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to intersect that because so many of our kids and young people were coming in having been exposed to and suffered from trauma. That meant that we also needed to help them build a skill set to help them heal and then thrive beyond their trauma, even as they remained in the midst of that trauma. And so that's what we created and that's what we built. And so Ember is a manifestation, an intersection of the decision makers and those
Mm-hmm.
decision makers deciding that we're going to be human developers, not merely teachers.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, so hold up, man. You come from poor boy from Germantown, no lights, roaches, then
Yeah,
chase the mice out because you don't have no food. They don't have no food in the house. Lights off. What made you believe that you could even pull something like this off? That's what I like. Where's the belief come from that you
yeah,
can even do this? Because that look, let's just keep it real. I mean, it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like people opening charter schools with this type of vision.
Hmm.
You know, so what made you believe that you
Yeah.
could even do that?
As well, bruh, like of all the charter schools in the country, especially here in New York City,
Hmm.
while they serve about 90, 95% of those students are black and brown, less than 6% of the schools are founded like people like us.
Yeah,
So, because it takes a lot, right? It's a lot
yeah.
to aspire. You need resources, you need a strategy, you need a plan. But if I'm honest, I did not think from the start that I was going to do this. What I believed I could do was the next step, and maybe the next four steps. And I had a North Star. I knew I wanted to get there, but I didn't visualize only that. I said, okay,
Hmm.
this is where I want to get. What are the steps I need to get? So then what I believed I was capable of was taking the next 3 to 4 steps. And
Okay.
then continuing the plan 3 to 4, 3 to 5, then 10
Yeah.
steps ahead. Now, again, other people, maybe they can visualize it, they can build the whole plan in their mind and they can go out and execute it. Things work perfectly. Didn't work that
Yeah.
way for me. Even
Yeah.
planning 3 and 4 steps ahead, I've met challenges, I met obstacles. First time I applied for my charter, we got turned down. First
Hmm.
time. And again, like I thought we had one of the most innovative models that there was. And it was true. We were the only model that changed the way the decision making was made in schools. The only one ever in New York City. Only one. And we got denied. And and what I learned was also people say they want innovation, but
Hmm.
bureaucrats aren't always really ready for innovation. What they really
Yeah.
want is incremental change. So you got to describe your innovation incrementally. And I learned that.
Right.
I learned
Right.
that between the first and the second time. So that's what I would say to answer that question. I did not, I didn't necessarily believe that, oh, I'm going to do all of this. I
Yeah.
believed that I could get to the goal if I was methodical, persistent, and I knew I had those things. I mean, my childhood prepared me to be methodical and persistent. I knew
Yeah.
I could take a lot. I was strong. I could take
Right.
a lot of setbacks. I could take a lot of hits, right? And I knew I would be bloodied, right? I knew I would get beat up. I knew people would say all kinds of things, and people come from my character, and people would try to come from what they were not going to come for, though, was my intelligence. That I
Yeah.
was going to be
Yeah.
clear about, right? You can say a lot of
Right.
things, but what you weren't going to be able to say was that I was not an intelligent thinking, strategic thinking person. And so no
Right.
matter where I
Right.
showed up, I was prepared. There's
Right.
no substitution for that. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. That's how I would answer that question.
So you had a dream. Sounds like you had a dream. You had a goal, and you developed a plan as you went through. But it also sounds like you started where you stood
I did.
versus I need to have this laid out plan before I can even take a step. And it's
Absolutely.
that's an important piece because sometimes we get paralyzed by the fact that things are not laid out for us perfectly, A through Z. And
Hmm.
because you can't necessarily see what's in front of you, many times we don't take that step first and second and third step that's going to reveal the steps that come after.
Obed, you are so right. Listen, part of what people naturally want to do is they want to reduce risk to zero. And the
Yeah,
truth is that if you're going to do something that's not currently being done, the risk is high. So you have to
yeah,
lean into the risk. Your risk tolerance has to be stronger than others. And
yeah.
then accepting that risk doesn't mean that you don't plan. It means you simply accept that you believe in your capacity to respond to
Mm,
challenge, to respond to setback, to respond to losses. And so you have a plan A, B, C, and D. And then the last plan is I'm gonna figure it out at the end of that, right? I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm gonna trust my instincts. I'm gonna trust my training, right? I'm not gonna I'm not gonna let the clock continue to define me. I think sometimes we think if I don't do it, if I'm not the greatest person by the time I'm 21, I lost.
yeah, yeah.
Man, I turned 50 this month and I'm still working, I'm still growing. And
Yeah,
so, like, I'm not even close to done. I'm not even halfway there. So,
there you go.
I've learned enough that I don't know that I would yet classify this as wisdom, though I did learn this from other people who are my elders and some of whom have gone on to ancestors. What I
Mhm.
did learn is that water wins. Water wins.
Okay.
It is a liquid. It feels and looks like something that's innocuous, but its
Mhm.
persistence brings down mountains. It
Mhm.
carves valleys. It moves things far larger than itself. You know,
Mhm.
Bruce Lee talked a lot about being water for this
Oh,
very
yeah.
idea. That's
Talk to me.
persistence. So that I wrap my arms around that, right? I don't have anything else but my will and my
Yeah,
mind. Those
yeah,
two things, I'm ready to go to work against anybody out there, against any circumstance, and that's what I will continue to do. And that to me is how you forge your dreams. That's how you
yeah,
design yourself, right? You are willing to be patient but persistent. You are willing to do what it takes to learn, to do those things that are necessary to plan, to look ahead, and to not feel entitled to the success. I think that's the other thing
yeah.
too, right? I
Mhm.
manage I manage my disappointments because I don't feel entitled to win. I want to win. I want to win
Right,
for our people. I want to win for the things that I'm endeavoring to do. I don't feel
right.
entitled to it. So I'm going to go
Yeah.
earn it.
Listen, man, if that's not wisdom, God damn it, I don't know what wisdom is. That
That's exactly
because shapeless, formless, Bruce Lee, that's my man, so it's there's so much there. I want to ask you this. There was, I would imagine, a point when, because you went through all the challenges, you had this dream, you had this goal, you had some challenges along the way. Did you ever have that damn I did it moment? Whether it's like you walking through the hallways and you see, the halls full of students, or the first time you walk through the facility, like what was that experience like?
yeah,
Because again, this was something that you had in your mind for years,
yeah,
for years, and to actually see it come to life. Please tell me
yeah.
about that.
Well, I mean, I think I've been blessed to have a few of those. I think our first year
Mhm,
when we had our first group of students, um, and to go from our very first public outreach event, I'm out there handing out flyers, trying to let people
mhm,
know about the school that's going to open. And our very first event, we got one family. One family came to this church. Now that young brother, like they came, they enrolled. He graduated from our middle school. Um,
mhm.
I mean, tragically, he graduated from our middle school, and during COVID, right? And he lost his
Mm,
mom to COVID, right?
mm,
And so but she's got him all the way to that point, right?
yeah.
That was one of those moments, right? But I would say it was really just this past year. We graduated our first graduating cohort, right? To
Awesome.
see some of these young people who had been with me for 12 years from the beginning,
Yeah.
from the start, and to see all of them not just graduate, they got offered multiple scholarships, they got offered to go to multiple colleges, and to see that 100% of them, 100% of them had an opportunity that they had earned, that they had
Yeah.
forged. And so at our graduation, I have two really good friends, one of whom is the U.S. Attorney here in Brooklyn, Breon Peace,
Hmm.
and the other one of
Hmm.
whom is our congressman and the minority Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. And both of them came to speak. And
Okay.
both of them looked out over these like hundreds and hundreds of black and brown families. And they're standing, and both of them are sons of Brooklyn. And so they're
Okay.
standing and they're looking, and they were like, Brother Rafiq has been talking about this. So we knew him all the way back in law school. And to see this in this moment, and to see those brothers there, and to see that it was us and our people, and that we did this together, I
Yeah.
was proud. I felt like okay, I can take a deep breath and say, maybe I did a little something, a little bit. I'm not
Right.
done, but
Right.
maybe we did
Right.
a little something together. And I felt proud. I really did feel proud in that moment.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Look, tell me about or for I guess define, because for some we've heard of entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
but tell us what a social entrepreneur is and how you show up in the world as a social entrepreneur.
Well, from my perspective, if we take the entrepreneur part first, this is a person who's going to create an enterprise that doesn't currently exist. And what
Hmm.
they're going to attempt to do in the marketplace is to offer goods and services to people that they believe need these goods and services or want these goods and services. And
Hmm.
so when I encumber that word with social, what it then brings into this is a social challenge or a social issue that someone is going to start an enterprise in order to solve that for the people who need it to be solved. And so that's how I see myself, right? When I first began this pathway, I thought that, well, the social enterprise that I'm starting is a school, and the school is
Hmm.
going to provide education to young people. And as I started to stand it up, even in the first year, I realized really quickly, actually, that's actually not my endeavor. No, that's not what
Yeah.
I'm about. I'm actually in the business of transformation. I'm in the business of offering young people and their caregivers, if they so choose to invest themselves, the tools, the skills, the exposure that they need to be able to transform their lives into whatever it
Hmm.
is they want to be. That's a different endeavor than just
Hmm.
please memorize this multiplication chart, then memorize this historical fact,
Right. Right.
put together this science fair project. It is a different endeavor. And so that then means that I have to start to think about the other challenges that are encumbrances to them. I got to think about housing. I got to think about workforce development. I have to think about how do I start to give them the tools to disrupt and heal from both their trauma and the
Hmm.
racism that they're going to encounter and have encountered. It means I have to think about this as a holistic endeavor. I have to think about them as a human being and how to empower them with the skill set to become the version of themselves that's going to allow them to be prosperous and impactful and healed in this world. That's a different
Hmm.
endeavor. And
Yeah.
so now I'm an entrepreneur. I'm trying to create that as a space. I'm trying to step
Okay.
in and say, well, as an enterprise, would it look like to attend to that endeavor? And so that's why I would describe my work now. And so,
Okay.
my next steps, the things that we're doing in this next phase is to do exactly that. That means that's about making sure we already teach economics internally, starting in kindergarten, because it's
Okay.
essential to be in this world and
Awesome.
understand the marketplace. That means you
Yeah.
need to understand game theory. You understand not just goods and services, but you understand finances. You need to understand capital. You understand ownership, property, intellectual property. So all of these things have to be integrated into the things that we want our young people and their families to learn. And so I have transformed as a practitioner, and our
Hmm.
organization has transformed to continue to evolve. And so I define our enterprise in that way. We are now a human development organization. We aren't merely a school.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Let me shift a little bit. What do you how do you feel about, people talk about dreams and passions, and how do you feel about aligning your work with like your dreams and passions? Is that something that you feel is necessary? Is it overrated? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, I don't want to work, right? So because I don't want to
Hmm.
work, right,
Hmm.
my dreams have to be aligned to this endeavor we call work, right? So
Right.
then it doesn't feel like work at all. It's my life.
Right.
And again, for me, that's how I am able to do all the things that I endeavor to do. Because I do one thing, I live. I
Hmm.
live. I live my dreams, I live my passions, and I operationalize them through this organization I've been describing to you, between the boards that I sit on, the people that I mentor, the service that I endeavor to give to the world. So for me, if one really wants work-life balance, you will align your dreams and passions to your work. Those
Mm.
things will be in perfect alignment if you can. Now, everyone can't, right? If you want to be an author, right, especially as you're starting out, you need something to fuel your life while you continue to author, right, and tinker until you're ready to author it to the world. If you are an artist, as you work on your art, until your art can feed you, you need to feed yourself, right? And so it may
Yeah.
not be possible for those folks, but if you see your work in service to your passion and your dreams, then again, it won't
Mm.
feel like work. It'll feel like this is a part of my creative process. This is a part of my production process. This is a part of my entrepreneurial process. And so that's what I would invite people listening and watching this to consider. If you align your dreams and passion to what you do every day and you frame it that way, you're not really
Hmm.
working. You are
Yeah.
living your dream. You are living your passion. That's how I try to walk in the world. That's what we invite our students, our clients, our staff members to see the world that way. Because I think once you do that, then you're living a fully aligned life. And that to me is when we maximize our power.
It's awesome. Okay. Let me talk about relationships real quick. So, coming from where we come from, back then you got people outside the house that's doing all kinds of
Yep.
things, and you got your friends and you got your
hmm
associates and you got people that you run into. So as you've grown and you've evolved, you kind of sometimes you have a tribe, you have like your core folks
Yeah.
that you're with. Has that evolved over time, or is your core group the same group? Or has it been the same group, or has that evolved? And yeah,
Yeah.
let me find it.
Well, I would say foundationally it's the same group, right? But I've added people
Okay.
to the tribe, right? I've
Okay.
added people to the tribe, and to be in the tribe, we are all of the same mindset, right? I don't
Okay.
know if you remember. I don't know if you remember Hakeem Franklin. So Hakeem, who went to high school with us, but he didn't graduate with us. He didn't graduate.
Okay.
He left the year before we graduated. But Hakeem, he was my best friend then, because he's been my best friend now, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
I
Like
can see his
he's
face, I feel like.
yeah,
Because I
the craziest thing about this, when we were 16, 17, Hakeem went to
mhm,
go take this random job at Mount Airy Veterinary Hospital, cleaning
uh-huh.
animal cages because it pays a little bit more than minimum wage. And it's a
Right,
job that he got. He was funded some ad in the paper or something like that. He
right.
owns the joint. He
Oh,
owns the
damn.
joint. He owns the joint. He is the owner of that and two other practices now. So when
Wow.
I talk about mindset, like that's what
Yeah,
I'm talking about, right? So that's my brother, has been my brother all this time, still a part of my tribe.
yeah,
This sister, Rennie, like Rennie is amazing, like OBGYN, doctor, surgeon, again, from Germantown. Like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So there are people who have been in my tribe and have been my people since all the way back and have known me in that phase. My boys that
yeah.
I met at UVA continue. But even as I got to law school and even as I went into practice, my friend Tina, Tina Perry was talking about earlier, like literally if she lives in California too, you California folks, y'all love the weather out there. Like, but I if I need advice and guidance, like that's I can hit her, that's my sister, right? So
Okay.
I have added people to the tribe, but the one consistent thing about all of us is that we believe that you
Mhm,
can design yourself. We all believe it, and that's what we do. And we believe that we got to bring other people along in that endeavor. And so we got
mhm,
to do what we can where we are, to pour that into the people who are around us. And so I think the people around you feed you or can
Mm-hmm.
devitalize you. So if you
Mm-hmm.
surround yourself with people who they're just takers, if you surround yourself with people who want to naysay, like you said, right? Like people who are naysayers and say, "Nah, that's not possible. Nah, that's not that great." Not, I believe in protecting your peace, and so I continue to
Yeah.
surround myself and build with people who help feed my soul. I help contribute to feeding their soul. And we believe in the same type of things. I don't mean politically. I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
this interpersonal thing that we're talking about, right? This thing
Yeah.
about how do we believe in transformation and evolution of the self. And so, yeah, so I mean, my tribe is much larger now than it was in the past, but it contains some of the same folks who've been there for a long time.
So have you ever had to distance yourself or cut people out of that tribe? And if so, what did that look like? Because I have some thoughts on that, but I want to hear what you think.
You know, I I guess I would say that there are some relationships that I don't water. And
Mm-hmm.
so they are relationships are biodegradable, right? If you
Yeah.
don't water them, you don't give them sunlight, you don't nurture them, they're organic. And so if you don't do that, they will recede. And I've
Yeah.
had relationships that have been like that, right? I've had friendships and brotherhood with folks that they've decided to move in a different way, in a way that's not in concert with the values and integrity that I roll with.
Yeah.
I think I've encountered people who have decided that they want to be oppositional to what I want to achieve. I
Mm.
just don't invest any energy in that. I mean, I'm clear, I'm cognizant. I've had people who have been mentors who then become roadblocks later.
Mm.
Um, and I don't believe in black on black violence. So
Yeah.
I'm going to protect myself and what I'm going to do. I'm going to be resolute and clear, but I don't need to tear people down. It's not what I'm going to
Yeah.
do. And so what I would say is I'm mindful about where I invest my energy, and I just will
Yeah.
stop investing my energy in that particular kind of way. And I've had to do that over the years.
Yeah.
And now I'm just really mindful about the people who I allow into my orbit. Um, no one's. I'm. Let me not say no one. I am not perfect at choosing and recognizing.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to connect and build. And some people are really out for self. They want to
Yeah.
aggrandize self, and it can sometimes look like it's in concert with the values of uplifting our people when it really is
Mm-hmm.
about uplifting them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not. I haven't been immune to avoiding
Yeah.
those type of folks.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I would say, right? I mean, I think that's what I would say. And I mean, I tried to do my best to limit the damage to the people that I'm trying to serve. Like I said, I'm
Yeah.
strong. I can take it. I can take an
Yeah. Yeah.
insult. I can take people, trying to, I'm strong. Like I know it's not true. So I know I'm not
Yeah.
going to accept it. But when it
Yeah.
starts to impact the work that I'm doing, those things, then I'm really clear about what I need to do to protect this endeavor and what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Man, listen, I've worked with young people at a vocational school called Job Corps.
Hmm.
It's a residential facility, and I've heard this so many times where young people, these are my day ones, these are my day ones,
Hmm.
even though you met them last week, all of a sudden
Hmm.
they're your best friend. And I think it's so important for us to take an inventory and really take a look at who we allow in our immediate circle. And
Absolutely.
are they aligned with the things that we want to accomplish? And hopefully we have aspirations and dreams and goals, but to allow people in your life that can't contribute in a positive way. I
Hmm.
mean, no one's gonna be perfect. None of us are perfect, but it's
Yep.
important to be aware of who's in your circle, right? But also, listen, you have to be strong enough and love yourself enough to distance yourself if you need to, even when it comes to family members. Because I don't know about you, but
Absolutely.
I come from a family where, I love you, but I might have to love you way over here
Way over there. That's
or
right.
way over
That's
there.
right.
When I see you, I love, hey, what's happening? But I'm gone, after
That's
that.
right.
So it's so important that that message, I think, is delivered, that the people that, you control your environment, you should,
Hmm.
and you should really take inventory and value the tribe that you have, and you can design that tribe as well. So it's really, really
Well,
important to do that.
brother, I think it's we desire as human beings connection. We
Hmm.
desire connection, right?
Yeah.
Connection is one of our basic needs. And so sometimes we take the connections that are available. But your advice is the right advice because sometimes an available connection can actually devitalize us. It can
Hmm.
draw our energy, right? It can help take our eye off our North Star in the way that we've set it. And so sometimes it means we have to be willing to deal with the challenge of loneliness and
Hmm.
walking that path alone or with few people to go with us for a time. It won't persist. I don't know what it is about positivity, but it tends to attract positivity. Doesn't
Hmm.
always, right? But it tends to. We have to have faith in that process, which means there
Yeah.
are going to be times that we are walking only with the universe at our side, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily another corporeal human being, right? It might
Right.
be the inspiration of an ancestor. It might
Right.
be Allah, it might be Yahweh, it might be something that's non corporeal. But you
Yeah.
have to have faith that there will be other human beings who will see and be attracted to that light, which means that
Yeah.
there are going to be times when you are not right next to or abutting other human beings. And we have to communicate this to our young people even today, right? Because they desire connection. They want to be a part of something. And
Hmm.
I try to advise them all the time. Being a part of just anything is not going to necessarily lead you to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And we've got to be patient. Be patient with the
Yeah.
process, be patient with ourselves. But you're right, we got to protect our peace, which means protecting
Yeah.
our circle.
For sure. For sure. Mentors. How have mentors impacted you?
I mean, listen, I can't be a stronger advocate for mentorship. I try to
Mm.
pay it forward by mentoring as many people as I can. I literally have been blessed by the mentors that I have had and continue to have. Um, when I got married, one of my mentors was the officiant at my wedding. And this is
Hmm.
why this man was being treated for terminal brain cancer. And he
Hmm.
showed up to
Wow.
do this anyway. People who love because they see a light in you, not because they want anything from you. And so sometimes people will appear to be mentors and they really want
Hmm.
something from you. So you've got to
Yeah.
be clear. No mentor wants anything from you at all other than your best,
Right.
other than your effort. That's what they want to see you do. That's how you repay their mentorship is by doing what you said you were going to do
Right.
and investing yourself with integrity and diligence. That to me is a definition of a mentor. And
Yeah.
for those mentors, I know for a fact my life would not be where it is without it. I've had mentors make phone calls I didn't even know until years
Yeah.
later. People are telling
Mm.
me stories like, "Oh, you know, I took that meeting with you. You probably don't know this, but just I took it because your mentor called and said, give this young brother some time. Just give him
Yeah.
15 minutes. You won't be disappointed." And without that call, I wouldn't have gotten in the door.
Yeah.
And then people who have said, "Learn what you don't know." Best advice I've ever gotten in my entire life. Learn what you
Yeah.
don't know. And so what it is a central part of my DNA to this day and will be until the day that I'm recycled by this earth to become
Hmm.
something else. It will
Yeah.
continue to be. And so mentorship, I would say seek them out. Mentorship costs you nothing but effort. And anyone
Hmm.
bargaining for anything else is not a mentor. They're looking to
Yeah.
use you, they're looking to do other things. So be mindful of the difference between mentorship and exploitation.
Yeah.
Mentors simply they see you as an opportunity to give back to the world, and that's all they want. That's all they
Yeah. And
want.
they
But I
don't
think it's
and they
essential.
and they don't want you to waste their time currency. I think
Absolutely not.
that their time currency, and that's, you know says a lot of what you just said in terms of, the effort and the energy, and the work ethic to actually get things done, because they want to see you win, but they also want to see you putting that energy and that sweat and that effort in. You know,
because they know that's what it takes to win, right?
yeah.
They know that
Yeah.
that's what it takes. Like, I mean, when even if I'm just going to lunch, coffee, grab a drink with one of my mentors, I
Mm-hmm.
prepare, and I prepare in a way to I just do some reflecting, like
Yeah.
how do I want to spend this time with this person, and sometimes I want to just be present, and I want to
Yeah.
connect on a human level. You know, one of my mentors, he lost his wife, and she is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever had the blessing to meet and know in the world. And he was an example to me about like love and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell him and tell him to this day, like what you two had showed me that like what's possible in a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
two people who are just trying to like feed each other all the time with a lot of love. And that means sometimes saying the hard thing with all the
Mm-hmm.
love, right? With a lot of humor, a lot of laugh. They laughed a lot all the time. They were, I
Right.
mean, just, and then to watch him even after her passing, then go
Yeah.
do and create and build in her honor. It's a
Mm-hmm.
testament to me of what the ongoing investment and the return on love. So even
Yeah.
those things that like I didn't think that I would find mentors who would teach me anything about love. Like, you know what I'm saying? I
Right.
got these mentors who've been married for like decades. Watching them as like a couple. Like it's so even that as a text to be able to read those things has
Mm-hmm.
really helped me understand and design the kind of husband, father, partner that I want to be. And
Yeah.
so mentorship even gives you things even when it's not trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those relationships are so important. I mean, my accountability partner, who is also my cousin, we talk about relationships and how many opportunities come out of relationships, and it's so powerful. But I think it's really important for us, in general, to embrace mentorship and learning and getting feedback and implementing
Hmm.
that and implementing feedback. So yeah, so okay, you got to tell me about what inspired you to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Please, man. My man done fell
I
down.
mean,
He done fell down. He broke his
yeah.
toes.
Yeah, listen, let me tell you this. You know, when I got my first surgery to help fix my leg, the
Mhm.
doctors told me all these things that I would never do. When I got my second and third one, they were like, look, we can fix the aesthetics of it, but you got to just adjust your expectations about what you're going to be able to do physically.
Yeah.
And I never really understood like why that was, because I read all these stories about these athletes and people who were amputees and people who were like who did these things that overcame their. And so I wanted to challenge myself to do something that seemed impossible,
Mm,
that required simply taking the very next step. And if I could do that, if I could just take the next step, could that mindset take me to the top of the highest point in Africa, one of the highest
mm,
points in the world? So it was a way to challenge myself and to challenge the theory that is at that point I felt uncertain about. This was
mhm.
before I started my school. I got just gotten the charter approved after the second time applying, and I had no money. I was completely broke. I had invested everything in the housing crisis. I lost the house that I had all these plans, and the market just responded and killed all those plans. And
Yeah.
because I didn't get the charter the first time, I lost all this. I spent all my savings, cashed out my 401k. I had nothing. And the
Wow.
last little bit that I had been planning for this trip, and I decided I was going to do the trip anyway. I said, you know what? I had been planning to do it. I decided to do it anyway. And I thought I had trained for it. I trained for it completely wrong. Like when I got there, the people who were on this trip, these were marathon runners. This was their fifth mountain that they were going to climb. It was like the top of, and it was my first mountain I ever climbed. And
Yeah.
so, but I said to myself, everything is just one step, one
Yeah.
handhold, one foothold. If I can just will myself through every one of those successfully, then I can do anything that I want to do. That's why I
Mhm.
did it. And it was the hardest physical thing I've ever had to do, but it was also the most liberating thing that I had done. And so nothing is going to be harder than that, right? I
Yeah.
know literally if it comes down to whether Rafiq can take the next step, I'm going to take the next step. I know I have the will, strength to do the next step and then to do
Yeah.
the next step. And so that's why I did it. And it's beautiful from up there, bruh. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's a
I
beautiful
believe it.
planet. It's a beautiful world.
I believe. Did you break your toes?
I broke my ankle on the way down. On the
Okay.
way down, I broke my ankle.
Woo!
And I broke my ankle. It was hubris, really, like because I thought, oh, I did it. Woo! We're on our way down. Must get easy.
Yeah.
You know, on the way down must be on the way down is more dangerous than on the
Yeah.
way up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just took 1 second, because all up to that point, one step, one step, one step. And
Yeah.
I was talking. I was so excited that we had summited. I was so excited. And, not for nothing, the air stood up there. I was feeling a little
Yeah.
loopy, and I was
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. Yeah.
also part of it, but I just missed a step. And
Wow.
I was so afraid that I was going to continue to fall down. But like, I remember what they taught us. I remember how to just throw my weight back, lean. But by that time, my leg was caught underneath me. My ankle was caught. And it took a long time to get back down. They had to help me get, and again, that took a long, long, long time. And I felt like even in that moment, damn, like I can't walk back in. I gotta limp back in. But I did
Yeah.
it right. But I
Yeah.
finished it out. Like I
That's
finished it
it.
out.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna get ready to start to kind of wrap it up a little bit, but I want to ask you a couple of things. Imagine if, see, call it a game, whatever you
Okay,
want to call it. All right. Imagine if you can go back in time and give your younger self advice about life design. What would it be?
invest,
Okay.
include investment in your life design.
All
Get
right.
learn how to. This is the one thing. If I would have known this, the market's been around for a long time. It is the
Mhm.
one piece of advice. I would have opened up an investment account when I was 14, and I would have
Mm.
bought stock and been buying stock and holding stock the whole way through.
Yeah.
Transformed
Yeah.
everything. Would have transformed everything.
All right. Imagine if you could invite three people, living or dead, to dinner. Who would they be, and what would at least one of the topics of dinner be?
I would invite people I don't currently know because I can go to dinner with people I currently know. So I would
Yeah.
invite Robert Smith. Um, I would invite Oprah, and I would invite um, hmm, Brother Chin from Canada.
All right.
I
All
would
right.
invite those three people, and I would talk about. The topic of conversation would be how do we invest in the infrastructure of life design for Black and Brown people. That's what
Beautiful.
I would talk to them about, and
We got
investing in
to
an organization to do that.
we got to make that dinner happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Make
we'll
that
see.
dinner happen.
We'll see. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Imagine if you had the chance to address a global audience for 5 minutes to share one crucial message. What would that message be?
Hmm. We are more alike than we're different. And human beings have only ever achieved anything great working together. I know that's two things, but I see those two things as connected.
That's all right.
That's what I
That's all
would talk
right.
to them about.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna ask you this because I'm gonna skip down. I'm gonna ask you this. All right, my daughter, she's 5 years old. And what would your advice be to her in terms of designing her life?
Hmm. Um, if I could give her advice she would receive, that's a different question. I give advice, but that she could receive,
Hmm.
I would invite her to be curious about everything and to
Yeah.
nurture her curiosity.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's what it would be.
Okay. So, there's going to be, hopefully, a lot of people watching this show here. And there's somebody out there that has a dream, something that the people that are close to them don't support them on,
Yeah,
may not necessarily have any interest in, but it's something that they love, something that they can't stop thinking about and really speaks to their heart. But they're not getting support. People around don't necessarily believe in that thing. What would you tell that person?
I would say look for this is the great thing about the time we live in now, because the
Hmm.
internet offers us an opportunity to hear from so many voices.
Hmm.
Find the voices that speak belief into their soul, like this podcast. So if they found their way to this podcast, that's what they're going to hear, right? Find the voice. If they're not your immediate circle, find the inputs, because truthfully, the only fuel you need
Hmm.
to achieve your dreams is belief. Belief in yourself, belief in the possibility. That is the only fuel you need. Everything else is possible and everything else is work, which you control. So I would say if it's not in your immediate circle, do research, find the texts, the videos, the movies, the examples, the people who are speaking to you about belief, about dreaming, about being a self actualizing individual in being. Find those and then eat, consume those things. And that will help play the role for you that the people in your life don't currently play.
Man, that's awesome. Okay. Any new projects you have going on that you have in the works that you can or want to share?
Well, I mean, I'll say this. Currently, I truly believe that the focus on graduating high school and going to college
Hmm.
is, while a fine aspiration, is too narrow an
Hmm.
aspiration to invite young people to. I think there are many things that people can do and learn that can amplify and lead them to prosperity. And so right now I'm currently engaged in broadening our work to be able to call in and give people a pathway to master the trades, carpentry, masonry, at the intersection of these intellectual endeavors that people might otherwise pursue. So I want people to be masons who go to law school, electricians who go to business school. I want people who to start to think at the intersection of these things that sometimes seem oppositional. And I'm working on a partnership with this other amazing brother in this organization that he started. And we're talking about how we can bring our organizations together to operationalize and do that, not just here in New York, not just here in Brooklyn, but around the country and around the world, particularly over to the continent of Africa. So that's our
Mm.
next work. That's going to be my next work for this next decade or two. And I'm excited about that. Again, expanding the business of transformation that we're in right now.
Man, this has been a beautiful time, Rafiq. Man, probably the only other thing that I want to know is there's one, and we talked a little bit about it offline, about some names, but I want you to think about one person that you believe has successfully designed their lives that kind of fall within lines of something that would encourage, inspire people to do the same. And think about that name. But before you get the name, you got to be willing to help us get them on the show, him or her
Yeah, you
on the show.
absolutely. I mean, listen, I can think of a few folks like this.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think the first person that comes to mind, um, there's this good brother of mine. We went to UVA together. He is recently been elevated to be the general counsel of one of the largest energy companies in the world, Dominion. Scott Carlos Brown, and I think again very similar. I grew up in urban poverty. He grew up in rural poverty in Virginia, and again, like the DNA of what we've been talking about, of who we are, the design yourself, he embodies that. So I pledge to you that I will reach out to him, talk to him about this podcast. Because I think, as you said, as we started out, the more people that hear and can be
Yeah.
fed by what you are offering and inviting people to do here, the more people who are going to go into this world and try to change it for the better. And I'm all about supporting that endeavor. So, brother, it's been an honor, an honor. It's so
Yeah.
good to see you. Brother,
Yeah,
it's good to
man.
be here. I'm humbled that you invited me to be on your podcast, and I'm grateful for the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Please keep it up in any way that I can support it. I definitely will.
No, absolutely, man. I really appreciate you. Before I close it out, is there a way that people can get in contact with you that you want to share or
Absolutely. Yes. So I would say the first place, please, take a look at our work, www.embercs.org. You'll see the core school and our mission and our work there. Um, we're going to have the first annual Black History Ball coming up in February here in New York. So, please come out. If you're here in New York, love to have folks kind of join us for that. They can reach me. Listen, I'm happy to support anybody. You can email me at Rafiq, Rafiq at Ember, EMBERCS.org. Send me an email. I reply to anybody and everybody. Like, I'm happy to be helpful. If you want to ask questions, if you want help, if you want advice, whatever, I'll do what I can to support you in pursuing your dreams. So, anyone who wants to get in touch, please do.
man, this has been an outstanding conversation. Like I said, I thank you so much for your time because time is currency. And
It is.
I really do appreciate it. I want you to hold on for a second. But look, it's been an outstanding conversation. This has been an enlightening time for me. And hopefully you found some value and inspiration and encouragement to go after the thing that you want, to really pursue it, to find people that are aligned with the things that you want to do. And no matter what the naysayers and dreamsayers say, remember, you are a champion. Believe it. Design your life, right? Start where you stand and keep on moving. And I look forward to our next guest and our next episodes. But just remember, you're a champion. Design life. Until the next time, this is Coach Bay. I look forward to seeing you. Peace.
Design your life. You gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. Tell the masterpiece, the colors so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Align your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet. Yeah, you gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. It's your masterpiece, the colors so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Design your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet.